Lum-tec has a new model, and it's one that's a little bit of departure for the Ohio-based brand. It's not one of the iconic combat field models, and it's not a dive watch nor a pilot. It's the Eclipse, a 42mm stainless steel integrated bracelet watch with a super thin profile at 9.1mm, a Miyota 9039 movement, and a somewhat unique stadium-esque matte dial. This version is the E1, a gray dial with old radium lume, but there are some real vibrant ones in the lineup, such as this green, a purple, and also an orange. Lum-tec may be a little late to the game with the integrated watch trend, but this is a good looking watch that wears well, especially if you're not into the sub 40mm pieces. It's priced at $795. Is Lum-tec too late, or is this a nice change for the brand, trend or not? Let's find out. Most Lum-tec models through the years have been on the rugged side, or at the very least, larger sporty models such as the M series lineup, the dive watches, and the combat field models. They've produced some different looking models though, like the V series shown here, but this Eclipse model is somewhat of a departure from what they normally produce. Now, in the last few years, many brands have been producing homages to the likes of the Patek Philippe Nautilus, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, many different Gerard Perregaux models, and so many others. And these days, everyone seems to have an integrated bracelet watch, from small upcoming micros, all the way to Christopher Ward and Yima, and of course Citizen, among so many others. One of the most popular has probably been the Tissot PRX. Now, as far as design, I looked around at a lot of integrated bracelet designs and I couldn't find one with this exact case design or really even similar. So I reached out to Chris Wiegand, owner of Lum-tec, and this is what he had to tell me. The idea of this watch is to not only make it a super thin watch, but also retain 100 meters of water resistance, and for it to appear as thin as possible by integrating the case edge to the bracelet thickness, which is just 2.85 millimeters. Another cool feature is the outer index, which hangs over the dial to create a feeling of depth. The bracelet was designed with pure comfort in mind, with the short links and a pivot every 2 millimeters. The design is 100% original and not inspired by anything else. And so what do I think of the design? Well, I have to say this is quite a good looking piece. Now, I may have chosen one of the more boring looking dial colors, but I love a gray dial, and even though I'm usually not the biggest fan of old radium or vintage lume, I think it works with this dial color and it makes it stand out a little more. As I said in the intro, there are some very vibrant dial colors of this watch available, and if you're even more boring than me, there's also a black dial with C3 green lume available as well. Now, I'll talk about the dial in a minute, but as Chris stated to me, he wanted a super thin case, and to me, this really is the standout part of this watch. I've reviewed a lot of integrated watches over the years, and while I generally like them, they are not something I gravitate towards, and it really has nothing to do with you can't generally change the bracelet, or if you do, you're having to go OEM. No, it's more than I find many of them beautiful, but I kind of appreciate them from afar. This Lum-tec Eclipse, though, with that thin angular case, is really quite something. The finishing is also really well done, especially considering it's an $800 watch. Yes, it's a mix of brushed and polished finishes, nothing really new here, but this is some very fine machining and finishing here. It's really top notch. Both the case, bezel, and bracelet gleam and bounce off the light, especially when outside or in a very well lit area. It makes it look like there's a lot more high polished areas than there are, but that's due to the way the case is cut as well as the faceted bracelet. Now, the crown is probably the one area of this watch I would call rugged. This is a sporty model, but this large knurled crown almost looks out of place, but I like the contrast to it from the case to this crown. It's a screw-down crown as well, something not always seen on this style of watch, and as mentioned before, it has 100 meters of water resistance, so they actually made a slim sport watch that can still be worn daily. Now, the dial's no slouch though. It's unique in a few ways. Firstly, the finish, which is a matte finish, but the stadium part, that part that overhangs the main dial, has a lacquer to it, giving the dial some nice contrast, and in between those cutouts are applied indices. Now, the main dial has printed indices and numbers, and I love that they did the 12, 3, 6, and 9 instead of just doing all rectangle indices. It adds to the sporty appearance of this piece, at least in my opinion. As it's a Miyota 9039 movement, this is a no-date dial, so nothing is interrupted here. Now above the dial, there is a very prominent sapphire crystal, and this is one area I'm a little worried about. I assume Lum-tec wanted to have a nice thick sapphire, but with the case being so thin, there's not a lot of room to inset into the case, so it does stick out a bit from that bezel area, and there's an edge to it. It looks good, and it creates a nice edge to the watch case, but on a good drop, I hope it won't shatter. Around the back, you'll find the Miyota 9039 movement beneath another sapphire crystal, and as Chris said to me in my emails with him, the conical shape to the back of the case sinks into your wrist to hide more thickness as well. And so let's get into the fit and the bracelet. Unlike a lot of integrated bracelets that flow out from the case and lug area, this one drops right down, part of that pivot system Chris stated to me. It makes a big difference in how this watch wears, and yes, it's 42 millimeters, and I can hear people groaning now, wishing it was smaller. Yes, I have a 7.5 inch or 19.05 centimeter wrist, but I don't find this watch to wear all that big, and the lug to lug is on the shorter side at 47 millimeters. And with the way this bracelet fits and how thin the case is, the watch really does melt into your wrist, if you will, in the best way possible. The bracelet itself is finished just as well as the case, and I really like the design of this bracelet. You got squares on the outer links, rectangles in the middle, all of them with the facets to them that really sparkle and shine in the light. When it comes to the clasp though, it's a pretty standard butterfly clasp, and it's just not my favorite. I understand why they went with it over a flashier clasp or even a large ratchet buckle, and it was simply to make the entire silhouette as slim as possible. The links are quite small, so hopefully most everyone can get a good fit, but it would have been nice if there was a small clasp with some micro adjustments. Now I do love how it wears on the wrist and how thin this watch really is. Just take a look at it at that side profile. You can see how thin it really is, but it's also very comfortable. Now with a name like Lum-tec, you really want great lume, and this one does not disappoint. The old radium turns a nice shade of green in the dark, and on Lum-tec's website, this is what it's called. MDV Luminous Technology Custom Developed X1 208 LE-GL Superluminova in 30 layers. You know, I'd probably just refer to it as X1 Lume, when you're having those in the dark lume meetings with the guys at work. But whatever you call it, it's a lot of lume, and it glows really bright, and it should last most of the night. Now, like all Lum-tec watches, it's got a double diamond sealing system for the crown, there's high-tech Viton gaskets, and they offer a lifetime-free movement timing regulation, lifetime-free pressure testing and seal lubrication and cleaning, a 2-year international transferable warranty, and this particular one, it's a limited and numbered series of 300 worldwide. All in all, I think this is a very well designed and more importantly, very comfortable piece from Lum-tec. It's been quite some time since a Lum-tec has come in for review, and I quite like what they did here. I still like the divers and the combat fields they do, and I'll probably always have a love for those M-series models, but this is a nice departure, and it's a very well made and extremely well finished watch, and not just for that $800 price point. But as usual, I want to hear from you, so head to the comments and sound off and let me know what you think of the new Lum-tec Eclipse model. There will be a written article, and you can check out the Lum-tec website for more. Both are linked in the description. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and if you never want to miss a review, turn on notifications. That's all for this one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.